Hello, Pharmacist Ben.
Hello, Mr. AJ.
How's it going? How's it going today?
Good. It's going good. Nice to see your smiley face.
Same here with you. Now, you had mentioned that you wanted to talk today a little bit about autoimmunity. This is a big word that doctors tell us about. And what is the origin? And tell us what you know about it.
Yes. So autoimmunity is a very mysterious subject. Supposedly, the body just attacks itself for no reason. That's what auto, meaning self, immunity. The immune system goes crazy and attacks itself. If you go to a physician, they'll tell you no known cause, and you're going to be on this medicine the rest of your life. The only medicine that they can give you are immune suppressants. They used to give you steroids for immune suppressants. Now they have these fancy biologics that are immune suppressants. They're basically just shut down the immune system. Now, is it intelligent to suppress your immune system? It doesn't seem like it is to me. Your immune system is your defense system. Nonetheless, if you're dealing with an autoimmune problem, you'll do anything to reduce the symptomology. And some of these immune suppressants do just that, because no immunity, no inflammation, no symptoms, or at least reduce symptoms. Nonetheless, you can stop autoimmunity at its cause if you understand what the mechanism is. As they say in biology, what is the etiology, the cause of the condition? So autoimmunity is the end result of distortions in cells and in tissue that makes the cells look like foreign substances, like invaders, thus activating the immune system. So then the question is what accounts for these distortions? And as always, this is true about all chronic degenerative disease. These distortions are caused by toxicity that enters into the bloodstream and is eventually dumped off into the soft tissues and into the connective tissues of the body. So the problem, as always, is dirty blood, increased blood viscosity, immune action in the blood. In fact, doctors will actually test the blood for something called circulating immune complexes when you have an autoimmune problem. What is the cause of these circulating immune complexes? Toxicity that enters into the bloodstream. How does toxicity enter into the bloodstream? Two ways. Number one, it can enter into the bloodstream through injections. And we know that things like vaccinations can induce autoimmunity. I have a huge textbook, 500-page textbook, not a pop book or some book you get at Barnes & Noble, but a medical textbook called Vaccines and Autoimmunity. Vaccines are known to induce autoimmune diseases. Why? Because you got stuff getting into the blood. Toxicity into the blood eventually enters into the tissues and affects the cells, creating distortions, thus activating the immune system. But for most people, toxicity is going to enter into the blood through leaky gut, through the intestine. This is so important. On the one hand, it sounds simple or even simplistic when you talk about the intestine, and you talk about digestion, you talk about food. And I can almost hear or see people's eyes rolling and, oh yeah, blah, 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 food and digestion and intestine. It's almost becomes like a meme. It almost becomes like jargon or cliche, and it goes in one ear and out the other. But if you understand the mechanism of immune activation and its relationship to blood toxicity, it makes perfect sense. So you have to focus on digestive health and on reducing leaky gut, or slowing down or inhibiting the openings, the leaks, the permeability of the intestine. The intestine becomes permeable in response to toxins and food reactions. Gluten, for example, can do it. Other substances that are called lectins, plant defense molecules. And a quick digression here, it's not only gluten. I talk to people all the time and say, oh, I'm gluten-free, but I still have my rheumatoid arthritis or my psoriasis or my autoimmune disease. It's not just gluten. Going gluten-free is great for some people, but it's not the end-all and be-all because of all the other things that are in foods, all the other plant defense molecules, for example. There's also a condition called SIBO, which is becoming more and more well-known. When I first started talking about SIBO 20 years ago, nobody knew what the heck I was talking about. Today, a lot of folks have heard of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO. Bacteria of the microbiome, intestinal bacteria, are largely located in the large intestine when we're healthy, but they become translocated to the small intestine under conditions of low stomach acid, poor bile functioning, chronic constipation, excessive ingestion of food, or grazing, long eating, not giving yourself breaks from food, as well as neural problems that affect the propulsion of food out of the colon. For whatever reason, food accumulates in the small intestine, bacteria proliferate. These bacteria can release gases which cause an opening or an inflammation of the intestinal lining. This is independent of gluten. So small intestinal bacterial overgrowth can be addressed, and I'll tell you a few ways you can address it right now in a second. So you've got small intestinal bacterial overgrowth leading to intestinal permeability. You've got gluten and other lectins leading to intestinal permeability, increases in intestinal permeability, food and food particles and bacteria, pieces of bacteria, substances called LPSs, lipopolysaccharides, etc., histamine, various bacterial secretions enter into the bloodstream. They initiate an immune reaction in the blood. That immune reaction, those immune complexes, circulating immune complexes, get dumped into the tissues and in cells. The immune system sees those cells and tissues as distorted, sees them as the enemy. Boom, you get an attack. What do? First of all, if you just want to demonstrate for yourself the power of this strategy and the relationship between digestive health and inflammation and pain and autoimmune symptoms, fast. Don't eat for a day. You will notice that your autoimmune symptoms resolve. And this is tried and true. Now, you have to eat eventually, but at least you'll see for a day or two of your fast the relationship, the connection between what you're eating and your autoimmune symptomology. Second, you've got to start to work on intestinal health. There's lots of ways to do that. Longevity has an awesome product called I-26, which kills excess bacteria in the small intestine, digestive enzymes, and stomach acid. And stomach acid supplements, betaine HCl, and digestive enzymes, which are in our Ultimate Enzyme product, can help. Apple cider vinegar with your meals can help to acidify the contents of the stomach. Acid in the stomach is antibacterial. Supporting bile, which is also antibacterial, by using bile salts, which are in our Ultimate Enzymes. Lecithin granules can also help. Then there's working on the intestine. Doing a food diary and eliminating problem foods is critical. That is, you write down everything you eat in a book, and then you notice when you have digestive or inflammatory problems or skin problems or brain fog or autoimmune symptoms related to the food you ate, and then eliminate that food. That's the food diary and the elimination diet. Extremely important. Also, there are things that you can do to support intestinal health specifically. There's a wonderful fatty acid called butyrate, B-U-T-Y-R-A-T-E, butyrate, which can support digestive health. You can also use, in addition to the I-26 that we talked about to kill bacteria, you can also use essential oils to kill bacteria. And in fact, if you go to a doctor these days, they'll give you an antibiotic to kill the excess bacteria in the intestine. Not a great strategy because antibiotics kill all bacteria. Bacteria become resistant to antibiotics. So that's not a great strategy. But using essential oils as well as I-26 can also help with intestinal health. An amino acid called glutamine, G-L-U-T-A-M-I-N-E. Glutamine can help. You'll find glutamine in whey protein. Glutamine is important for all-around intestinal health. Of course, there's also probiotics that you can use, but you got to be a little bit careful with probiotics because when you have SIBO, you've got too much bacteria in the small intestine. Sometimes probiotics can make the problem worse. So you got to be a little bit careful with probiotics. If you notice that your symptoms get worse when you take a probiotic, wait a little bit for the I-26 or your essential oils or your digestive health strategies, your food elimination to kick in before you start a probiotic supplement program. Nonetheless, probiotics are important. But if you have full-blown SIBO, you may notice that your symptoms get worse when you take a probiotic. So wait until you resolve the SIBO problem a little bit for maybe a week or two or a month before you get on a probiotic supplement. The same is true about fiber, which can also feed bacteria. So if you start a fiber program, you start adding fiber to your diet, more fiber to your diet, you notice your symptoms get worse. Take some time off from the fiber and kill off the bacteria using your I-26 and your essential oils and your digestive strategies before you start to incorporate fiber. One last thing is there are foods that are good foods, supposedly, and they are good foods. They have nutrients in them, but they also feed bacteria in the small intestine. These foods are called FODMAPs or high FODMAPs foods. FODMAPs is an acronym that stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides and polyols. Basically, these are starchy, fibery foods that feed bacteria. And they're good foods: avocados and eggplant and broccoli and asparagus and cabbage. All of these are theoretically good foods. They have good things in them, but they're high FODMAPs foods, and they can feed bacteria. So you got to be a little bit careful with your FODMAPs foods. Go on a low FODMAPs diet, that is, ingest foods that are low FODMAPs, don't have a lot of these fibers in them, and you can go online and you can find low FODMAPs foods. If you're eating high FODMAPs foods, even if they're good foods and they're gluten-free, you can still have a problem. So working on intestinal health is critical for all autoimmune patients, working on digestive health. And when you work on the intestine, you got to work on the stomach too, because the stomach plays a role in intestinal health. When you work on the intestine, you got to work on the gallbladder and bile, because the gallbladder and bile also play a role in intestinal health. Making sure you're having regular bowel movements is also very, very important. One of the best ways to assure healthy bowel movements is to take time off from food. When you take time off from food, your migrating motor complex, which is a series of electrical reactions, neuroelectrical reactions that is associated with the movement of food, the propulsion of food through the intestine, kicks in. So taking time off from food is another great way to improve the symptoms of constipation. Also, the B vitamin thiamine can help. You'll find that in the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. That's very important for all neurology, and thiamine deficiency is quite common. Magnesium is a mineral that is also associated with improved bowel functioning, and you'll find magnesium in a lot of longevity products. Of course, the OsteoMag and the OsteoFX are good sources of magnesium.
Okay, Ben, thank you. I do have a couple of just questions for a little clarity. When you mention, I'll throw them all at you at the same time. When you mention plant defense molecules,
yes,
LPS,
yes,
you mention these things. Can you give us some examples of those? And
yeah.
then another question is, how should everyone avoid FODMAPs foods?
No, not everyone needs to avoid FODMAPs foods, because a lot of the foods that contain FODMAPs, like I say, are good foods. Avocados are one of the best foods you can eat. They're a high FODMAP food. For most people, that's not going to be a problem. However, if you're dealing with bacterial overgrowth, those FODMAPs foods can accelerate or amplify proliferation of these bacteria. So you got to be careful. Most people aren't going to have to worry about that, because bacteria are not they shouldn't be located in the small intestine. However, if you have SIBO or the symptoms of SIBO, including autoimmunity, yes, you want to go low FODMAPs. Most people don't have to worry about that. So lectins are, like I say, plant defense molecules: peanuts, grains, soy, legumes in general, raw potatoes. These are all foods that have high lectin contents. Lectins can be thought of as plant defense molecules, in the sense that plants use them to punish the eater of those plants. So, plants don't want to be eaten. Nothing wants to be eaten. So plants make these molecules that will punish the animal or the human that eats the plant, with usually blood problems or digestive problems. Lectins affect the blood and the digestive system. So lectins are oftentimes associated with immune or inflammatory reactions in the body. And because lectins are found in things like grains and beans, and basically all plants really have a certain amount of lectins, sometimes people will be surprised that they're just eating organic, or they're just vegetarians, or they're vegans, but they're still breaking out, and they still have rheumatoid arthritis or whatever health challenge they're dealing with, and they don't realize that these lectins, which are found in so-called good foods, are activating the immune system. So you might just be eating tomatoes or peppers or any nightshade vegetable or peanut butter, or dairy products, all of which contain high lectins, and you're reacting. You're saying, "Well, I'm just eating organic, or I'm only eating raw milk," or you may not realize that the good food that you're eating is a lectin-containing food that's causing a problem, or for that matter, a FODMAPs-containing food that's causing a problem. And then, as far as LPSs go, lipopolysaccharides, LPSs, are almost always associated with blood toxicity and leaky gut. LPSs are bacterial byproducts. They're associated with the structure of bacteria, and when you have leaky gut, these little bacterial pieces, these lipopolysaccharides, which are parts of bacteria, get into the bloodstream. Because they're parts of bacteria, they look to the immune system like a bacterial attack. The immune system sees these pieces of bacteria, these LPSs, in the blood and says, oh my God, there's a bacterial infection, there's an attack, and that activates the immune system. So LPSs are very inflammatory. They're associated with all chronic degenerative diseases, as is blood toxicity in general. And the way you deal with LPSs is by using things that will inhibit the proliferation of bacteria in the intestine, in the small intestine, all the strategies we just talked about, and reducing the impact of leaky gut or intestinal permeability with nutritional supplementation, food elimination, and reducing or inhibiting bacterial proliferation in the small intestine.
There's nobody more helpful than you, Ben.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope that helps.
It does.
Awesome. Autoimmune disease is terrible, terrible, terrible. And it affects some 30 to 35 million Americans have autoimmune diseases, and they keep adding autoimmune diseases to the list. I was just reading how heart disease is now thought to have an autoimmune etiology or an autoimmune cause. So it doesn't really matter whether you call it an autoimmune disease or you call it an immune disease or you call it an inflammatory disease. All health challenges involve certain things like dirty blood, like leaky gut, like inflammation, which is always a sign of an activated immune system, whether you're calling it autoimmune or not. If it's inflammation, if it's inflammatory, the immune system's involved. And let me take it one step further. If the immune system is involved, the immune system is your defense system. If you have an immune problem, a defense problem that you want to reduce or eliminate, figure out what the offending agent is. The offending agent is something that you're putting in the body, either through food or injection.
Thank you, Ben.
Very
insightful. Thank you.
Thank you.